What is up, beautiful people? Welcome back to the Made to Excel Fitness Podcast, the fitness podcast for you, by you. I'm your host, as always, Mark Torres. And in today's episode 25, I'm going to give you the top 3 tips to making bulletproof goals that are going to help you make results and make progress in a real significant way. Plus, the Made to Excel Fitness University of Hard Knocks of Common Sense is back. And as always, the weekly follow-up. Let's talk about it all. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the Made to Excel Fitness Podcast. It is Monday, August 24th, which, guess what? I might be back at work. August 24th, as you're listening to this, is the first day that gyms can reopen in New York State. So I will most likely be walking around the gym floor as you listen to this. Of course, I'm recording this a little bit in advance, so it's a possibility that something unforeseen pops up from here to then, whether or not, the gym operating at such a limited capacity, they decide to not bring trainers back just yet. It's always a possibility, but there's a pretty good chance that I am back at work. So, of course, in next week's episode, I will give you guys a snippet into what gyms look like in the COVID-19 era, or I might not be back at work at all. That's always a possibility, but whatever, you guys will be updated next week. But yeah, it's really exciting. It's really fun. We're having a sense of normalcy return into our lives in New York State with the gyms returning. So be on the lookout for that. But before I go into today's main topic, I want to do Mark's Pop Culture Corner, which I've never done before, but these are unprecedented times. If you watch the show on YouTube, you see my little pop culture little corner here, and I'm pretty adamant and pretty obvious about the things that I like. My favorite show of all time is The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. My favorite movie of all time is Space Jam. 2 movies from the 90s, and it just so happened that both of these franchises, or both of these entities, had major news in the past 2 weeks, which is, it's 2020. Several years later, what are the odds that happened? So, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is being remade as a drama, which is exciting and scary at the same time because this stemmed from a fan-made trailer. So obviously, for somebody to go to the extent of making a trailer and making it look as professional as it looked, it was a great trailer. It's obviously somebody that's passionate about the show. So I have the utmost faith in this person. I think his name is Morgan Cooper. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. I have utmost faith in this person to do the show justice, but of course, I have some concerns. Is Jazzy Jeff going to get kicked out of the house all the time? Wearing the same shirt that he wears? Is Jeffrey going to be, sarcastic as he always is? Are they going to change Aunt Viv halfway through the show? These are all concerns of mine that I don't know if they work out in a drama. So I'm very curious to see it. I will obviously be watching. And Space Jam is obviously getting remade as Space Jam 2. We've known that for quite a while. But LeBron just released sneak peeks as to what the Toon Squad jerseys are going to look like. And my first reaction is they're trash. They're so bad. This might be something that kind of grows on me in due time because the jersey itself, if I didn't know what it was, is a semi-decent jersey. It's got some new kind of popular, color pop, things of that nature that the original doesn't have. The original is pretty straightforward, pretty classic. So I don't expect them, obviously, to use the original. I hope they do make a nod to the original jersey somewhere in the movie. That'd be kind of cool. But of course, they want to put their own stamp on it. They want to leave their own legacy on what is, I guess, now a franchise. So it totally makes sense. But, first reaction, jerseys are not that great. But I still have big hopes for the movie. I'm not one of those people that lets, part of a thing ruin the whole thing, right? In terms of Game of Thrones, people hated the last season, so now they denounced the show in its entirety. I didn't mind the last season as much as a lot of people did. But even if I hated it, I'm not going to let it ruin the entirety of the show, right? Lost was one of my favorite shows of all time. It had a very strange ending. I don't let it ruin the whole show for me. So, even if these things end up being really bad, which I hope they're not, it doesn't take away anything from the originals. But that's Mark's Pop Culture Corner. That's something I'm not going to do often. But what are the odds that both of these things had major news this week? But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this podcast. A lot of you guys are going to be returning to the gym, right? August 24th, gyms are reopening in New York State. You're going to be getting back to that grind. So here are the top 3 tips to making bulletproof goals. Whatever your goals are in the gym, how do you make these goals to be as useful as possible? So here are the top 3 tips to making bulletproof goals. So tip number 1, and of course as you're listening to this, you might be thinking this is a rehashing. He's going to say a lot of the same things that I've heard before. I'm not going to really learn anything new. Some of the tips might be things that you've heard before, but hopefully I give you a new perspective into them that'll help you kind of give yourself a little of a mindset shift that will help you actually kind of move in the right direction. So tip number 1 is to be uber specific. And if you are familiar with the acronym SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. I could have messed that up because I just remembered those on the spot. But for SMART goals, the first thing is specificity, and my first thing is to be uber specific. And that's really important because if you don't have a specific goal, you can find yourself kind of spinning your tires in the same place for a long period of time, which obviously you don't want to do. If you follow me on Instagram, at MTEFit, before this whole coronavirus thing started, so back in January, February, I had a very specific goal. At that point in time, I was walking around at a lighter weight than I usually am. I didn't have as much muscle definition as I usually do, so I wanted to bulk up. So I don't know if I was like, I would have to go back and look at the specifics, but I was, maybe 160 something, maybe closer to 170, and I want to get up by, 12, 13, 14 pounds, whatever, over the course of 3 months. So whatever the specific goal that I had was, it was like X amount of pounds by X amount of time. So I had a goal and a time frame that I was striving for. And having those two things really made me take specific actions toward those things, which is why you have a specific goal in the first place. So I was counting my calories. I was using MyFitnessPal every day. I was counting my protein, and I was working out X amount of times per week. And I was doing all those things just to get to that specific goal. If I don't have a specific goal, then maybe those actions don't take place. Because, of course, you don't know exactly what to do if you have no specific goal. But then, of course, March comes around and the whole coronavirus thing happens. And life looks very different from February to March and April. Even to now, March, life looks very different from February to now. Now things are opening back up. A lot of the things have reopened in a very different capacity, but they are reopening. We are closer to normal than we were a few months ago, but it's still very different. So imagine, February to March was very, very different. Nothing was open. So at that point, that specific goal that I had went to the wayside. And I'm sure a lot of you guys, if you had goals at that point, kind of fell to the wayside as well. And that's perfectly normal. That's the human condition. We had this massive event happen that shifted our focuses elsewhere. So if you've kind of fell off the tracks a little bit there's no reason to be hard on yourself in that particular situation. I'm sure everybody fell off the track. Not everybody, but most people fell off the track. Unless you had some sort of contingency plan in place, there's no chance that you were aware of this, that you knew this was going to happen, and you were just didn't miss a beat. So having an uber specific plan is super important because when the virus did hit and, my plans fell to the wayside, I got to the point where I stopped working out. I was working out regularly, but they were terrible workouts. They were really short. They weren't focused. And my nutrition went really poorly. So I was eating more than normal. I was eating a lot of ice cream. I'm still eating a lot of ice cream. Over the past 5 months, I've eaten so much ice cream. But it got to a point, where March, April, May were shot for me. I gained a bunch of weight, and I'm sure a lot of people were in the same boat. But eventually around June, July, I decided I had to pivot, right? I wasn't going to change too much about my nutrition because I know that when I eventually do go back to work, which I might be back to work as you're listening to this, like I said, my diet will start to normalize a little bit. I won't be able to eat as much. I won't be able to eat as much ice cream because I just don't have the time to do so because I'm at work. So I know that eventually that will normalize on its own. But when it comes to working out, that's something I have kind of reign over right now. So I started to really be hyper-focused on my workouts, have a specific plan in mind, and be really meticulous with my workouts. And obviously my workouts have gotten substantially better. Right when I posted that progressive overload video on Instagram is really where my workouts started to turn. But as of right now, I don't have a specific goal. I decided that I wanted to take the extra calories that I'm consuming just naturally and use that towards building muscle. So I don't have a specific muscle building goal. I just have muscle building as a general goal that I'm working towards right now, which is a good step in the right direction. I have some sort of direction that I can take, some sort of actions that I can take. But in the end, it's not specific enough. A perfect goal would be I want to gain X amount of muscle in X amount of time. But of course, building muscle is kind of a finicky thing. You don't really know exactly how much muscle you're gaining unless, until way down the road when you're able to gain some weight and then lose some weight and see how much muscle you retain. So it's not something that's very evident and easy to see. Maybe a different goal that you could go with at that point is I want to bench press X amount of weight for X amount of time. So I want to bench press 50 pounds for 20 reps. That's something that I can strive for by, maybe the end of September or whatever. That is a specific goal. It's a strength goal, but hopefully with strength comes some muscle. So that is a specific goal that I can do. So you're going through these cycles, right? I had a very specific goal at the very beginning of the year. It fell to the wayside. Now I have a general goal. If I want to take it even a step further, I want to be as uber specific as possible. So if you want to lose weight, you want to lose X amount of pounds in X amount of time. If you want to gain weight, you want to gain X amount of pounds in X amount of time. If you want to get stronger, you want to lift a specific lift. You want to deadlift X amount of pounds for X amount of reps by X amount of time. So being uber specific in your goal makes it so that you don't spin your wheels in any sort of general direction. If you have a general goal, it's better than nothing, but having nothing as your goal, you're not working towards anything. It's very hard to make progress in any sort of direction because you have no direction to go in. So tip number 1 is to be uber specific. Now, tip number 2 is going to be the most controversial of the 3 tips because it's kind of counterintuitive. Because tip number 2 is to be conservative. And it's counterintuitive because obviously everybody wants to shoot for the stars, and you absolutely should have a dreamer spirit in your life, right? Everybody's parents, everybody's teachers, everybody's counselors, they say you can do anything that you put your mind to, which is technically true, right? Everybody has the ability to do absolutely everything. But of all the parents that have told their kids that they can be the president of the United States one day, imagine how many kids don't end up making it to that point. We've only had 45 presidents in U.S. history, so it's not everybody's destiny to get to that point. Of course, you can dream big, and maybe a person who wants to be president of the United States ends up in a local office. And sometimes that job is more important, if not as important, as holding the highest honor in all the world, in all the land, as being the president of the United States. So it's just not everybody's destiny to be the absolute pinnacle of something, right? When I was a kid, I wanted to be a New York Yankee. Now I'm making a podcast with 12 subscribers in my bedroom, and I'm not Aaron Judge. So it wasn't in the cards for me to be a New York Yankee. But that doesn't mean it's not in the cards for you to be the healthiest, strongest, most muscular, lean version of yourself that you've ever seen. It doesn't mean you have to be The Rock. It doesn't mean you have to be Mark Wahlberg. It doesn't mean you have to be Zac Efron. So you should have a dreamer spirit. You should reach for the stars, but just know that good enough is good for many, many people. Of course, there's going to be outliers that are going to excel, but you might not be one of those people. That doesn't mean you can't be healthier than you've ever been in your life. So being conservative, when I talk about being conservative when you're making a goal, is with a goal comes a plan. So you have to have a plan in order to achieve that specific goal at any given point, at any given rate. So one of the things that I do a lot as a trainer is people don't maybe necessarily want to work with me in a one-on-one capacity. They don't feel comfortable with it. They don't think they need it. Whatever. They don't want to have a personal trainer there watching their every move, telling them what to do, and that's perfectly fine. But some of these people, they come to me to have a general plan written out for them, and I do it within the span of, 10, 15, 20 minutes. So obviously in that short amount of time, I don't know you enough to give you, the best technical plan on the planet that's going to give you the best optimal results. I can give you a general direction of where to go, and hopefully you take that and you run with it, and eventually down the line, you can start to maybe work with me again, whatever the case may be, right? So they have a general idea as to where to go. But the first thing that I ask somebody is how many days, not the first thing, but one of the first things that I ask somebody is how many days per week they want to work out. So a lot of times, if somebody comes to me and they say they want to work out anywhere 4+ days a week, they want to work out 4, 5, 6, or 7 days a week, especially if they're a beginner, that's a red flag in my mind. And I know that that person is going to have a really tough time working out that many days a week if they're a beginner. Of course, if it's somebody that was like a very avid gym goer for a long time and they got hurt, they haven't been to the gym in a while, that's a different scenario. That person can probably handle a lot of days in the gym because they're used to it already. But a complete beginner, somebody who's not been in the gym that often, it's really tough for them to be in the gym that many days a week. So when they start to go through their week, let's say they're a person who has a Monday through Friday 9-to-5 job, they'll say, all right, I work 9 to 5 every day, but Monday nights I have bowling league. Tuesday nights I take my daughter to recorder practice. Wednesday nights I don't have anything. Thursday nights, I have this, that, or the other. Friday nights I don't have anything, but I like to chill, and then I don't work Saturday or Sunday. So they start to go through they start to go through their schedule, and only you know the nuance of your own schedule. So they'll say, I get out at 5 on Monday, but bowling league doesn't start till 8. So I technically have 3 hours. I can maybe work out there. And then, my daughter doesn't do practice until 7:30, but I can go, I'm just dropping her off. I can go drop her off sweaty so I can maybe fit another workout there. Wednesday I don't work out, so that's fine. And then I can do a workout on Saturday or Sunday when I'm not actually working. So they start to rationalize these different days that they can work out. Wednesday's an obvious day that they can work out. They don't do anything after work. One of the weekend days where they don't work at all is an obvious day to work out. But they start to rationalize, maybe I can do it before bowling league on Monday. Maybe I can do it before dropping off my daughter on Tuesday. Friday I don't really do anything after work, but I like to hang out and just chill out. Maybe I can do it on one of those days. So I can try to maybe work out 4 to 5 days a week. In my mind, as a personal trainer and having seen enough people go through this, I know that time is such a big constraint for a lot of people. So once time becomes a crunch, the first thing that's going to go is working out. So let's say they get out late on a Monday, or they are really tired on that particular Monday. They know they have bowling league in 3 hours. They don't feel like working out. Guess what? They're not going to work out. They get out Friday. They're so excited for the weekend. They just want to chill. Guess what? They're not going to work out. So the 4 or 5 days a week that they were planning to work out, they really only end up doing 2 days. They do the Wednesday night where they don't do anything, and they do one of the weekend days where they don't work at all. So in my mind, I know that 4 or 5 days is not going to work for them. I know 2 days is really where they should be kind of hanging out. And so one of the fundamental principles of business is to undersell and over-deliver. The easiest kind of example of this is if you buy something online and it says it's going to ship in 7 to 10 business days and you get it in 3 business days, you're fucking ecstatic, right? You're expecting it to get your particular package next Tuesday and you get it this Tuesday, you're pumped up. But if you order a package and it says 7 to 10 business days and you get it in 15 business days, you're pissed off because you're expecting 7 to 10. You really get it in 15. It's late for whatever you bought it for. You feel like you wasted your money. You feel like the company gypped you out. Undersell, over deliver. If it's going to take you 3 days to ship something, tell somebody it's going to take 7 days. And when they get it early, they're super ecstatic and they're super happy with you. And they say your customer service is fantastic. Fitness is no different. Undersell, over deliver yourself. So when you're coming up with a plan, you want to be really conservative. You want to be really kind of adamant with yourself about what is something that you can realistically do. If you are trying to justify being in the gym 4 to 5 days a week, it's not going to work out. It's going to be very difficult for you. Shoot for those 2 days. Those 2 days are going to be the best bet for you, right? Because if you work out those 2 days a week and you do that over a long period of time, guess what? You're hitting 100%. You are acing the plan that you made. if you just so happen to get out early on a Monday and you have time to work out before bowling league, you come in and you do cardio, you do some sort of extracurricular sort of random day, then you are excelling. You're an A++++ student. You have extra credit, and that feels really good for you. But if you shoot for 4 days and you only end up working out 2 days, that sucks. You feel like you failed. You only did 50% of what you needed to do, and that's not going to be, the best thing for your morale. That's not going to be the best thing for your psyche, for your psychology of fitness. So undersell, over deliver yourself. If you only work out 2 days a week, you're hitting 100%. If you get an extra week, you're extra credit. If you just so happen to only work out 1 day, it's one of those things where like, I can always pick it up next week. It's not so big of a daunting task for you. Anybody can hop on board with working out 2 days, and it's not so much a big of a stretch. So be super conservative when you're making a plan that's going to help you eventually reach your goals quicker than if you try to shoot yourself in the foot by doing too much too early. So tip number 2 is to be conservative. And last but not least, tip number 3 is to execute and build momentum. So this is the easiest, kind of the most obvious kind of tip out there, right? Of course, if you have a goal, you make a plan, you start to execute on that goal. Obviously, you have to execute. If you don't execute, you don't do it. But having a conservative plan and something that is easy to execute helps you build momentum, which is the second part of tip number 3. Because building momentum is going to be super important to you doing something in a very, very long-term sort of situation. So if you have a conservative plan and you're hitting it all the time, you're building momentum. You do it for 8 weeks in a row, you start to feel really good about yourself. I've been 100% with my workout plan for 8 full weeks. Once you start to build that momentum, you can say, all right, I'm in the gym 2 times per week and I'm only working out for 30 minutes. I can extend it to 35 minutes. 40 minutes, 45 minutes. You can get longer and longer and longer because you're building the momentum, you're building your confidence, you're building your ability to be in the gym and enjoy the gym. And building the momentum is how you start to build intrinsic motivation, which if you listen to the motivation episode of the Made to Excel Fitness podcast, you know that intrinsic motivation is what drives you to be successful in the long term, because that's when you start to really enjoy working out. That's when you start to really enjoy what you're doing, and you start to have this internal passion for doing it, not for looks, not for getting girls or getting guys, not for any sort of outside motivation. You're doing it for yourself. And once you start to execute and build that motivation, that's when you start to have that long-term success. So tip number 3, execute and build momentum, is really the icing on the cake. Tips 1 and 2 is really the cake itself. Tip number 3 is the icing, but sometimes the icing is just as, if not more important than the cake itself. So those are the 3 tips for building bulletproof goals that are going to help you get results. Number 1, be uber specific. Number 2, be conservative. Number 3, execute and build momentum. And hopefully, as you guys return to the gym, you can take those 3 tips, apply it to your lives, and really start to make good progress going forward. Really start to hit the second part of the year hard, on the ground running, and really make some progress, right? Really make up for some of that lost time that we lost here due to coronavirus. Start to make up some lost time. So that about wraps up that portion of the show. Now we've got the Made to Excel Fitness University of Hard Knocks of Common Sense. Mark Torres, Made to Excel Fitness University of Hard Knocks of Common Sense. So on this week's syllabus, I get a lot of emails. I've had the same email address for, the majority of my life. So I have a lot of things that I have eventually signed up for. And at some point in college, there was a point in time where I thought I was a really fashionable guy. I thought I dressed really well. So I started to really get into GQ and Ask Men. These were 2 fashion men's lifestyle brands and magazines. And of course I signed up for their emails. So I still get them. I'm not so much into that anymore because I don't go anywhere to be fancy and dress up. But I still get their emails. And I got this email a few weeks ago. And it is 5 ways to lose body fat for men. And I was like, this will be interesting. Ask Men is not a fitness website, so what are they going to potentially say? And this particular article was written in June 18, 2019, so they must be running out of content. They're just recycling the content that they've had from last year. And it's written by Michael Martin. And I just want to read the first part of this. because it's really interesting. So, fat. Ever since Charles Atlas and Johnny Weissmuller, don't think I said that right, introduced American men to the idea of body insecurity a century ago, an industry of estheticians has existed to get rid of it, promising to vibrate, massage, beat, or suck it out of you, if starving it off hasn't worked for you yet. For decades, fat removal technology fell into two camps: invasive surgery, liposuction requiring general anesthesia and painful recovery time, or scams. Remember those vibrating ab belts? Last two episodes. The great news that has changed. In recent years, technology has advanced and has advanced rapidly, bringing forth new procedures that make eliminating stubborn love handles or bothersome belly easier than ever. Now, we're not talking about major weight loss surgery here. These minimally invasive and non-invasive treatments are best suited for a bit of extra pudge or areas of stubborn fat that aren't responding to regular workouts. Read on to find which might be right for you. So, first and foremost, he talked about starving, which nobody has to starve to lose weight. So he's already off there. Michael Martin, the author of this particular article. And then he talks about if you're having trouble losing extra pudge areas or stubborn body fat that aren't responding to regular workouts. Well, Michael Martin, working out doesn't lead you to losing weight. Being in a calorie deficit leads you to losing weight. So you're already on the wrong track here. But this is where things go really sideways, because his top 5 methods for losing body fat for men is minimally invasive liposuction, True Sculpt, Kybella, M-Sculpt, and plasma skin tightening. These are all procedures that you can have. I don't know exactly what some of these are. Never heard of them before, but these are all procedures or some sort of this is radio frequency machine that heats fat, causing selective apoptosis, cell death for fat cells. This is, tip number 1 is bullshit. Tip number 2 is bullshit. Tip number 3 is bullshit. Tip number 4 is bullshit. Tip number 5 is bullshit. Michael Martin, you're a fucking idiot. This was the worst article that I think I've ever read in my life. The top 5 ways to lose fat is to do these minimally invasive procedures because you're having trouble with other things, he says. Nobody should spend their money, waste their money on these procedures unless you're in a really, 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 really bad spot. So Michael Martin, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? If you read something like that, I hope and pray and I implore you to not kind of fall into the trap. Michael Martin, I don't know what he does, but this was the worst article that I've ever read in terms of fitness. Please do not go that route. Please do not go the route of surgery or some sort of procedure that promises you dramatic weight loss. None of these things work. Being in a calorie deficit works. Working out semi-regularly works. These things work. You don't have to make a crazy lifestyle change. You don't have to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on a procedure that's not going to do anything for you. That was just an interesting thing that popped up in my email. I just had to share it to you guys. But last but not least, the weekly follow-up. So last week's episode was all about blood flow restriction training and my fitness Mount Rushmore. And it just so happens that Steve Cook, one of the most popular fitness YouTubers of all time, posted a video a couple days after the podcast came out, maybe the same day that the podcast came out, called Demi Bagby Attempts the Arm Challenge. And in this video, he uses blood flow restriction training cuffs. And I was like, what are the odds? So let me put the video in there for you so you guys can see it.
Open these up, and then we're just going to hammer down on these.
Demi, have you ever done these before?
Never even. Am I at the doctor right now?
So she says, am I at the doctor right now? And Demi Bagby, for those of you who don't know, is another Gymshark athlete. Steve Cook is a Gymshark athlete. Gymshark athletes tend to collaborate with each other all the time. So I guess he was at his gym, or she was at his gym in Utah at Fitness Culture, working out with him, doing arm workouts.
It's like
Dr. Swole's a lot.
Oh, that's what it is. How tight is that there?
So the cuffs that they're using has a ratcheting, I don't know if it's a ratcheting mechanism or just a tie-off mechanism, kind of like a clamp that holds it in place. These are one of the cheaper options, I think, that I discussed in last week's episode. These are not very costly, so if you did want to try blood flow restriction training for whatever reason, it was compelling to you, the cuffs that he's using in this video are actually, I think, pretty non-costly, so it's a good option for a lot of you guys out there if you wanted to try it. Not saying you have to try it.
That's very funny.
We go.
I grab
Actually,
that.
you grab this,
I grab this.
and I'll grab.
Count. Hey, I think that's 14. Hey, 15.
The other thing to kind of think about here is now that I look at this video, Steve Cook is obviously a much bigger human being than Demi Bagby is. Demi Bagby's tiny. Steve Cook is, I don't know if he's 6 something, 6'1", 6'2", maybe just even 6 foot. He's just a big guy. So his training cuffs are at the top of his biceps. He's got obviously bigger arms than Demi does. His training cuffs are at the top of his bicep. If you look at Demi's cuffs here, to show her doing the cable curl.
There it is. Come on.
There, you can see that the cuff is so big compared to her arm that they did start at the top, but it's like kind of going halfway down her arm because her arms are not that long. So I think if Demi Bagby wanted to do this in the future, if she really liked it, if she really enjoyed it, it's not necessary for her to do it. She would have to try to find some maybe smaller cuffs that fit her arms better. Same thing when you're taking blood pressure. There's different blood pressure cuff sizes to take blood pressure if you go to the doctor's office. So I think these cuffs are probably a little too big for Demi. I could be wrong.
Demi. I'm not doing it. Yeah. I'm dropping 1. Yeah. I'm dropping 1 and I'm going 12. We only got about 10 seconds rest.
Yeah. Guys,
Drop weight. Go back.
I picked too heavy of a weight. Guys, this is how to get Steve Cook's arms.
Come on. Come on.
Guys, this is how to get Steve Cook's arms. Steve Cook's arms are gigantic. But blood flow restriction isn't necessary to get Steve Cook's arms. I'm not going to tell you what's necessary to get Steve Cook's arms.
Come on, Demi. Come on, Demi.
Another rep.
Come on. Come on.
I can't feel my arms.
Go, Demi. Come on.
Shake it
Go,
out.
baby.
So she just said I can't feel my arms. If she was saying this to be funny, if she was saying this to be, just extra for the video, that's fine. If you really can't feel your arms when you're working out, stop doing what you're doing. It's probably not good. And another side note is they did this at the end of a workout. So they did a bunch of stuff in advance of this, and then they put the blood flow restriction cuffs on. So don't do this for your entire workout.
Feeling like the ultimate warrior right now. Huh? Demi, what you gonna do when the ultimate warrior runs wild on you? Let's go.
Steve Cook is so extra. So the whole point of that video was that they measured their arms prior to doing a workout, and they measured their arms after doing a workout. They put the blood flow restriction cuffs on just, I guess, to feel an extra pump. If you're going to do an arm workout and you're going to do as intensive an arm workout as they did, your arms are going to technically grow in that particular time frame. But that's not a permanent thing, right? So everybody's arms in this video grew. Steve, Demi, there was a couple other guys in this video. All their arms grew. If you're going to get to the point where you're doing a ton of arm workouts with very little rest, which they do in this entire video, and you're going to get that pump, you're going to get that pump with or without the blood flow restriction cuffs, your arms are going to be technically bigger. So the blood flow restriction cuffs aren't necessary. It's just a cool tool to use. If you wanted to use it, like I said in last week's episode, you absolutely can use it. I just thought it was funny that Steve Cook just so happened to post a video on blood flow restriction training where he was doing blood flow restriction training right after that particular podcast episode came out. So maybe blood flow restriction training is making a comeback. But the other thing about the weekly follow-up was that I asked you guys 2 weeks ago, I guess, to guess what my fitness Mount Rushmore would be. And a lot of people said The Rock, which is pretty obvious. I talk about The Rock a lot, but I don't consider The Rock to be like a fitness person. The Rock is in like maybe my people Mount Rushmore of all time, just for myself, not for, obviously not everybody's mileage may vary, but fitness Mount Rushmore, maybe not. Somebody said Bill Batman Smith. Bill Batman Smith holds a special place in my heart. Biceps are fun things to train because of Bill Batman Smith. But he's like right on the little other side of the fitness Mount Rushmore. Mark Ripito, good old Rip. He didn't make it, but I had some pretty good guesses. Nobody got it exactly, but some pretty good guesses out there. But that wraps up today's show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening or watching. Leave a comment. leave a review. Share this podcast episode with somebody who you think might enjoy it. If you're on YouTube, hit one of the 2 related videos. I think you might enjoy those as well. If you haven't seen them already, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Instagram at MTEFit. Follow me on TikTok at MTEFit. If you have any questions for the Q&A, send me a DM or email me at made2excelfitness@gmail.com. I appreciate you all and love you. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
What's up, Mark? How you doing, man? Hunter Henry, LA Charger tight end. Best big time shout out to your fitness podcast, the Made to Excel Fitness podcast. So super cool, man. Got a lot going on. Bolt Ganger, don't bang.